Okay, let's go back to trying to find the scale tool. Okay, there you go. And then we grab that axis that looks up on the torch. The goal is to stretch it to the point that it gives me squares that are somewhat even on the surface, instead of looking stretched like this, like rectangles. I want it to be squares because that is the texture we're trying. We're trying a checker map, which is squares. Excellent. So we have something that looks a little better, right, on the UV editor than all those broken pieces. The beauty of this texture, and we might have some issues there in that one phase that we might need to tilt that, tilt those UVs. You can always come to the UVs and trying to move them to avoid the angle. That way it distributes better and you get rid of stretching, which seemed to happen. Before it was like that, and there's some pinching over here, but if you kind of get them more stretched out, you see that it starts even out more. Now we have something that is a little bit better. So you can do the same for the top part over here, which is all these faces here. You could do the cylindrical projection, you see, and then it already starts looking much better. And in this case, I think they might need rotation again. Let's see. Yes, it does need rotation. You see how it's kind of horizontal here, but the torch is actually in this direction. So you see it's already starting to line up nicely on the UV editor. You see how much nicer it looks? And now we have better distribution because we have the squares instead of kind of wiggly lines. So that's beautiful. I think it looks great. So you get the move tool, move it out of the way, and now you have pieces that are looking a little bit better. So if you're using a wood material, for example, having pieces that are longer like this is better than having a very segmented as it was before with the automatic mapping. Let me show you again how it looks with the automatic map. Look how many loose pieces you have with the automatic map versus doing what we just did, starting with the automatic map and then creating bigger pieces. It will create a mapping that is much more efficient. And if you do use bitmaps or JPEGs or photographs, the texture will not end up looking broken on the surface of the geometry. Once you have all this done, remember that you need to then scale it down and fit it in the UV texture area, in the default UV texture area. The one that will be looked at by default when you apply a map is the positive quadrant over here, this one over here. These are mostly used for patterns and for reference. And then the next issue that happens that you might notice is that then you have a torch, but then the UVs got shrunk down, so now the texture tends to look much bigger. So if you want to go back to scaling your texture, you can always go to the hypershade, and on the material where you apply the checker map, follow the color node and then go to UV coordinates, follow that node, and on repeat UV you can make it, let's say 20 or 20 and 20. Look how much smaller the squares get on the UV and the hypershade, and the effect that you get is that pretty much it gets smaller on the UV editor, on the viewport, because you shrunk those UVs and now they fit a much bigger space. Okay, so I hope this helps, and I look forward to seeing your torches.